can record this if anybody wants it. And let's go ahead and begin. And of course, bear with me 1 minute here. Somebody else was using my terminal. Give me just 1 second. I got a fast way I can pull this up.
Hey Ron, did you basically, like, I know last week you were getting with the reps from the software company and everything. And you were kind of rediscovering some things about the software. Did you come back and readdress the class on basically the difference between the way you were teaching before and what you discovered about the software? Because
I haven't because we're not done with it yet.
Oh, okay.
We're not done with it yet. Still a few things he's got to work out. And I don't want to push blame on somebody else, but it was because of Churchill. He just did a number on setting things up. Did you guys watch the video on G52 that I sent out yesterday?
I got part of the way through it.
Okay.
I got a call at work, so I didn't finish it.
After we go over this, I'll kind of touch base on that also. All right. Let's get into this.
That's the one where you did the flanges and stuff, right? The 4 holes.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Okay. All right. This was our assignment. It was a 4x square, coordinates beginning at x0, y0. We wanted to write a G-code program using Begingrid and Endgrid to duplicate this square a total of 4 times. Okay. Stop this and share the other. This part actually, in the directions I had it start at 0, 0. So just kind of ignore this part, but the same holds true. We're going to need to have 4.5 inches of spacing or anything over 4 inches. Each one of these blocks is 4 inches. So we have to make sure that when we rate our Begingrid that we have enough spacing both horizontally and vertically. I like to use a 1/2 inch. We can use a 1/4 inch. It just has to be bigger than 4 so that the squares don't touch each other. That's in both the X and the Y direction. I said to build this row by row. Our choices are column by column or row by row. Column by column is 0. Row by row would be 1. and I asked for a zigzag pattern. Had we chose column by column, 0, and we wanted to cut that way, we would also put a 0. Same thing with row by row. If we would have put 1, we cut row by row with a 0. The code for a zigzag pattern is a number 1. So let's just get into the flash cut, and I'll explain it as we're going along here. Okay, so our objective was to make a 4x4 square. Okay. Now, ultimately what we're going to do, we have to write a program for these 4 squares. And I'm just going to annotate that. Okay, so if you're looking at our usual layout, instead of putting our next reference point where we're going to move to, we move right into G603. Okay. I'm going to skip the line for our begin grid, and I'll explain that as we build it. Me personally, when I make my builds, I like to go in the Y direction first. Okay. All right, so ultimately what we want to end up with is this. We want 4 squares. We want it to start at 0, 0. We want it spaced a half an inch apart. So
Hey,
this,
Ron, I'm curious as to why don't we just use the duplicate tool? I don't understand. Why do
well,
you have to?
you talking about in CAM?
I'm not quite sure where you get the tool from, but
You mean copy here?
well, I know I remember once you got one established, you were able to, you were able to highlight the piece, and then there was some feature on here that you can actually just duplicate as many
I think
times as
he's
you
talking
want.
about like I think it was called the G52 code or something like that, or the
Uh,
M52 code.
Yeah, I
well,
remember.
there's a way that we can do it in CAM, but the problem with that is until we get the you're talking about the nesting tool. Until we get the parameters set up with flash cut to where it goes right from program to cut, you would have to edit every single one of these squares with torch on, torch off, and it would take forever.
Well, isn't that what we have to do anyway?
No, actually, with Begingrid, you only have to write one code.
Oh, okay, that's right. Because then once we finish the code and we set up the however
Right.
we want it to cut, it'll automatically. Okay, never mind.
Okay. All right. Annotate. So I'm just going to make some notes here so that this makes sense. Okay, we want to do this. We're going to build it row by row. And this really, the row by row, that just has to do with, you're going to ultimately end up with the same amount of pieces. It's just a personal preference. We could build it column by column, but the assignment was to build it row by row. Now between this corner be a little crooked, but I'm just trying to save time. Yeah. I need to have 4.5 inches. And here we need to have 4.5 inches. All right. Back to our Begingrid, how we type this out. I'm probably gonna have to move this over here. All right. All right, so the command is Begingrid. All right. The first number in our Begingrid is how many columns we want to end up with, how many columns we have, okay? I said that we wanted to make a total of 4 squares, 2 by 2. So we have 2 columns. This will be column 1. This will be column 2. And I got a good way we can do this. Okay. Yeah. No, we'll just open. Okay. All right, we got 2 columns. The next order is the number of rows. Okay, we also have 2 rows. The 2 times 2 is what's going to give us 4 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to have it start at X0 and Y0.
I thought the next thing was a spacing, a half an inch.
Well, we can set it, but the directions that I gave were, I messed up when I had wrote the initial one. We can actually have it start anywhere. This portion, this is just the start position. So we could have it start at 5.5, or we could start to have, 8.5. This first command, this is only where we want the grid to begin. So it can begin at 0, 0. It can begin any number you pick out. All right, let's just say we'll pick 10, 10. Well, I'll just do it. I'll do it this way here. Okay. And when we go into our, where we type in our actual G codes, then we can make some adjustments. I'm doing this as a visual aid. Now, you want to have spacing. Our next number in the begin grid is spacing from this lower left-hand corner of the first part to the lower left-hand corner of the next part. You can make it whatever size you want as long as it's bigger than 4. If you make it 4, they're going to be on top of each other and you're not going to get the right cut. I use a half an inch. We can make it 1/4 of an inch. You just want to make sure that you have enough spacing between this corner and this corner to make a quality cut. So I say 4.5 inches. And that applies with the Y direction as well. If we made it 4 inches, these blocks are going to be on top of each other. So from the bottom corner of your first part to the bottom corner of the next part in the Y direction, we need that to be beyond 4 inches. So we're also going to make that 4.5. Now, I said to do it row by row. The code for that is 1, column by column is 0, and a zigzag pattern is 1. Underneath where you turn your torch off, that's where you would put your end grid in to end the command. I'm going to save this, and let's actually we can just move into CNC. Pull up our emulator. You were probably, Ben, you were probably talking about this nest tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
I was thinking about something else. I see where you're going. Don't let me confuse
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we can fit any number of tools in there, but okay, let's, we'll go in here and talk about this. Okay. Okay, so we have our basic rundown from line 1 to line 5. We have our begin grid. We have 2 columns, 2 rows, starting at X0, starting at Y0, 4.5 inches of spacing in the X direction, 4.5 inches of spacing in the Y direction. We built the grid row by row, and we're cutting in a zigzag pattern. I have this set on 360, so.
Ron, what about it being on the edge of the X-axis?
That was actually my mistake. Normally I wouldn't do that. And we're gonna go in here and tweak some things just so we can get more familiar with it.
That's why I thought instead of you putting 0, 0, that's why I thought you would put a 1/2 inch.
When I had put the initial instructions in, I meant to make it a 1/2 inch.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, say we go back in here, we want it to start at X 0.5, Y 0.5. We still keep the spacing because that stays consistent between each part. So now instead of starting on the axis, we're starting at a 1/2 inch in the Y direction and a 1/2 inch in the X direction.
Mm-hmm.
And we can make this any number that we want. Let's say we want 8 columns, 8 rows. Say we want to build it column by column, and we're going to cut it column by column. So now we have a total of 64 parts. When we run the code, I'm not actually going to go all the way through it, but
no errors.
No errors. It's going to cut each column. It's going to come to the very end square. It's going to come all the way back down to the beginning of this column, and all the way back down to the beginning of this column. It's always going to revert back to if we decide to cut it column by column. If we want to cut it row by row, we would just change this to a 1. And the same thing's going to happen, except it's going to go back to the beginning of each row before it cuts. That's why I like to use the zigzag pattern. It saves a little time. It's going to cut this row, move up, cut this row, move up, cut this row. You don't have to have that pause where it returns to, to the beginning of each row. Like I said, you could really make this as much as I'll show you how to turn, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to show you how to turn a CAD drawing, how you can use Begingrid with that. Let's go into CNC, CAD. We'll erase this. Okay, what we went over the other day, we have the shape tool, okay? shape tool brings up a list of, I guess what we would call common parts in this industry. We have everything from squares to mounting plates with 4 holes, we have 5 holes, triangles. There are a slew of preset drawings in the shape tool. Okay, for, let's go ahead and do, we'll do a flange, okay? We'll keep it simple, all right? You know this flange is 10 inches, okay? We can alter the parameters in this. You can say you want it 8 inches. You want the inside diameter to be 4 inches. You want the RDEF to be, I mean, you can change anything you want. You can increase the number of holes. Actually, 2.8. Same thing here. You can change the diameter of the holes just by rolling the wheel on the mouse. Change your hole count, moving forward or backwards. It's a really neat tool. But anyway, let's get into, we'll do 10 inches, 5 inches. We'll do, let's see, 1 to 1, 5. Whoa. 1 inch, 6. 4. Okay. On our green check, it made our flange. Let's, we'll save this.
Ron, we can begin grid that too, right? That part,
Yep.
right?
Yep, okay. All right, I typed in grid flange. That's the file name we'll use. We'll go to CAM. By the way, I didn't show this group, but all of the arcs that used to lead into the circles and the lines that would lead into the perimeter of the parts, I've erased those. So we no longer have to worry about that. But I'm getting off track here. Okay, so we go into it's generator G code, and we call it a grid flange. Save it. Go into CNC. Now just remember, 10 was our magic number. So we have to size this to where we give it enough spacing. We have errors because of the machine envelope, like you were saying earlier, Ben. We're actually into the negative. So, all right. We put an extra line, G00, X00, Y 0.0. We're actually going to move this here. Will be, take out that 603. Okay. We're going to punch in our begin grid. Let's say we want 4 columns, 6 rows. We'll start it at 0.5, 0.5, so it's off the axis. We need 10.5 inches of spacing in the X direction, 10.5 in the Y, because our circle was in fact 10 inches. We'll build it row by row, and we'll cut in a zigzag pattern. This is going to be our first point of reference. This is going to have to stay G00. We also have to designate our speed in this line. We need to turn our torch on. I'm not going to duplicate the circles just because it's not, we're limited on time. If I have enough time, I'll go back in and do it, but. Next reference point. So next reference point.